It's New Year. We've all got goals. We've all got New Year's resolutions, and we all have faint memories, maybe strong memories of all the previous times that we've tried to achieve things and it's just not worked. If that's you, if you have a long history of not achieving the things that you set out in the new year, or achieving different things, or still achieving them but beating yourselves up for all the other things you didn't do, you are in the right place. We're going to be thinking about how we can use self-coaching to make sure that we actually achieve our goals this year. Hello and welcome to episode 16 of season 2 of the PhD Life Coach. And this is our very first episode of 2024. So happy new year. I hope that your festive break was everything that you wanted it to be, that you were able to get the balance of productivity and fun and rest and recuperation that you intended. Little extra tip for you. If you didn't, let's practice some acceptance. Often we make this time of year a time to go, oh, I intended to do that, but I didn't. I intended to rest, but I didn't. I intended to work, but I didn't. And then we start the year beating ourselves up. It helps no one. We can learn from that. We can learn maybe about being a bit more intentional next time, but let's get to, I had the holiday that I had. It's where we're at. What do we do next? There is no need for us to beat ourselves up for how we spent the holiday and how it relates or didn't relate to what we intended to do. Once it's done, it's just a circumstance and we get to choose what we think about it. So focus on acceptance and let's look forward today instead. So what we're going to be doing today is really thinking about self-coaching and our goals. And I'm going to show you why most of the goals that we choose, we don't stick to. It's not you. It's not you lacking discipline or motivation or being weak-willed or any of these things we tell ourselves. It's because we're not really taught how to do this. And so today's going to have two sections. I'm going to have a short bit about choosing your goals, and then a lot more about how making it much more likely that you will achieve your goals. But I'm going to start with a controversial bit, which is if you generally don't stick to your New Year's resolutions, I'm going to recommend you don't make New Year's resolutions. Let's make 3-month resolutions. Let's decide what we're going to get done between now and Easter, especially for academics. Terms can be a really nice length of time to stick to something, to achieve something. So we've got so much information that tells us that when we decide something on January 1st, we're very rarely still doing it on December 31st. That's okay. Let's learn from that. Instead of beating ourselves up and saying it'll be different this year, it'll be better. Let's just decide where we want to be by March 31st. So this is the context that I'm going to work in this time, okay? So first, what goals are we setting? The biggest things that I see people getting wrong are non-specific goals and too many of them. So I want to be healthier. We've all had the training about making goals smart, making them specific and measurable and all that jazz, but I'm going to teach you a bit that I don't think you will have heard before. And that is, I want you to ask yourself, how am I going to feel when I achieve this goal? So when you lose weight, how are you going to feel? When you get that grant submitted, how are you going to feel? When you run that marathon, how are you going to feel? Whatever your goal is, ask yourself how you're going to feel. Because this is why a lot of us want to achieve goals, right? We think we'll be happier when we lose weight. We think we'll be more proud of ourselves when we get that grant. We think we will be more self-confident when we've done that presentation. The problem is, what most of us don't recognize is that change in emotion when we achieve a goal is usually pretty brief. All of us have achieved things in our past, but we don't spend lots of time going, oh, do you remember that time I ran 10K in 2004? I'm so proud of myself. I've really got a strong confidence for myself as a runner. No, we look back and go, oh my God, I can't believe I did that then. Couldn't do it now, could I? I'm useless. I'm lazy. I don't run anymore. So if you're expecting goals to change the way you feel, it makes it really, really hard to stick to, because you're starting from a place of feeling the same way you always feel. And you're chasing this thing that's just simply not likely to be true, or not true for a long time. We want to feel confident, but in order to do that, we have to put ourselves in a load of situations where we don't feel confident. in order to do the thing that we want to make us feel confident. But if our goal is to feel confident, then we don't want to do all those steps. If we want to feel fit and healthy, then we have to put ourselves in positions where we're not going to feel fit and healthy. You've got to feel fat and unfit for a while you're doing the training in order to get there. And if our goal is to feel fit and healthy, and the way to that is to definitely not feel fit and healthy in the meantime, it's really hard to do it. The other thing is we often want to do this because it's fun and exciting and it's part of the person we want to be. And we commit to too many of them. And so instead of making it fun, it actually just makes it all a massive stress. I've had years where I've set this work goal, I've set a fitness goal, I've set a crafting goal, I've set a writing goal, I've set a skincare routine goal. I genuinely have years where I have like 12, 15 different New Year's resolutions, and they're all great in principle, and they will all in theory make me feel good in a variety of different ways. But actually what happens is I start thinking, oh, I can't do all this. I'm failing at this already. There's too many things. And then I feel overwhelmed. I feel disappointed in myself, and I don't achieve any of them. So what we're going to do is look at our lives holistically and pick one or two goals that we think will make the biggest change. Maybe one work goal and one personal goal. And I can hear you saying, yes, but I need to change my food and my exercise and my working habits and the amount of time. I said, yes, that's fine. But you're not going to. You're not all at once. We're only picking for 3 months now. And so let's pick what are the two that we're focusing on for this 3 months. Let's just pick two. Maybe just pick one. If you need to pause at this point, then do, or carry on listening, but come back to it. You need to have a specific goal that you need to achieve in the next 3 months. That specific goal in mind as we go through the second part of this podcast. And I'm going to pick a work-related one because it's relevant to all you guys too. My goal is that by the end of March, I will have a self-paced course for anybody who wants to learn how to be their own best supervisor. So I'm getting to the stage now. I'm doing lots of workshops for universities, which is amazing. And if you want me to come and do one at your university, I do them online. They go brilliantly. They're wonderful. But not all universities book them. And some students want them at times that their universities haven't booked them. And I'm actually pretty full with individual clients at the moment. I have a bit of a waiting list. So if you're thinking you'd like to be coached by me in the new year, please do get on the wait list, because at the moment, all my time slots are taken up. And I want to be able to support more people than I do at the moment. And I also know that individual coaching is out of price reach for a lot of PhD students, particularly, and some academics as well. And I want to be able to have some of the coaching advice that I give be accessible to everyone. Now, obviously, I offer my podcast completely free to you all. And so you get a lot of value from that, but it's not the same as a structured program that helps you actually implement this in your life. And so my goal is that by the end of March, the content and the recordings and all that stuff is done, so that I can then be thinking about marketing and getting it all out to you guys after the Easter holidays, ready for the summer. So that's my goal, is to have a self-paced course on how to be your own best supervisor ready for launch by the end of March. I've said that for real out loud in the public. I mean, I've done that before, so it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen, but that's quite exciting. I hope you guys are excited. If you want to make sure that you're the first to hear about it, then make sure you get yourself on my mailing list. So if you go to thephdlifecoach.com website, go to work with me, you will see a link there to sign up for my email. You will get some occasional hints and tips from me. You'll get access to my free group coaching, and you'll be the first to know about this course when it becomes available. So that's my goal. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to take you through a technique that I developed. I'm super excited about it, that uses the self-coaching method to prepare you to achieve your goals. Now, as a reminder, those of you who haven't heard me talk about it before, self-coaching model was developed by Brooke Castillo, and it enables us to understand why we do the things we do and why we achieve the results we achieve. It divides things into the circumstances, so the facts of the situation, thoughts, the cognitive story that we tell in our head, feelings, the emotions that we have in our body. So we have circumstances, thoughts, feelings. Our feelings drive our actions, the things we do, and then our actions drive our results. And Brooke and all the coaches that have been trained by Brooke use this model to help people understand where their feelings come from, their thoughts, and therefore how they're in control of them and how they can modify those thoughts. And I find it super useful. It's the basis of a lot of my coaching. But what I've done is I've turned it all around to help you to achieve your goals. And so we can use it to pre-plan how we're going to do this. And we're going to do this in 3 different ways. Your first job is we're going to turn the model upside down. So your goal, your result, is going to be at the top of the model now. So our result line is at the top. And I'm going to put a self-paced course called How to Be Your Own Best Supervisor will be complete. Now, one of the things I will do in my own time that I'm not going to read or hear on the podcast is get much more specific about what that means. So what does exist mean? How many components am I expecting it to have? What stage of done counts as done? So I'm going to specify that all out a little bit more, and I would encourage you to do the same with your goal. So that's in the result line. And now what we get to do is we get to say, okay, what actions do I need to complete in order to achieve that result? And we really get to drill down into this. We really need to get down to all the specific actions that we'll need to take in order to do that, particularly the ones that are happening sooner. Now, when we talk about drilling down into these things, sometimes people can get really overwhelmed and say, well, I don't know all the steps. I like to think about this like looking out over a landscape. You know, I'm looking out of my window here. I can see the rest of my room, and then I can see my garden, and then I can see buildings and trees and stuff in the distance. The stuff that's up close, I can see in lots of detail. I can see my keyboard here and things like that. The garden I can see in some detail, and then the stuff that's further away is a bit more fuzzy. I'd really encourage you to do the same with your actions. So have a fuzzy plan as to what it looks like in each month, but have a somewhat more detailed plan about what it looks like this month, and then a much more detailed plan as to what it looks like this week. You don't have to have every single step all the way planned out. That can become procrastination when we tell ourselves that. But let's have detail of the bits that are close up and vague pictures past that. Then when we get closer, so if I walked up to my French windows now, I'd see the garden in much closer detail, and I'd see the houses beyond in sort of somewhat more detail. As time passes and we get closer to those things, we crystallize and turn into slightly more detailed plans as we move through time, as we move through that landscape. So specify out what actions you need to take in order to achieve this goal. Now, lots of people will get you that far. Lots of people who are teaching on goal setting will get you as far as you need to plan exactly what you need to do in order to achieve this goal. What they don't do is the next bit. We know that our feelings drive our actions. Those of us who've been doing the self-coaching stuff for a while know that our feelings drive our actions. If you're feeling a bit like, oh, I don't know much about this self-coaching stuff, go back a few episodes. About 5-6 weeks ago, I did an episode called How to Self-Coach and Why You Should. So go back and check that one to get lots more detail on all this stuff. But we get to think, how do I need to feel in order to do these actions? And for me, it's probably somewhere in focused and purposeful, I think, because I'm aware, and this is barrier anticipation, this is something else you can do, we've talked about before, but I'm aware that I'm really busy with clients at the moment. I have a lot of one-to-one clients, I have a lot of workshops booked, and that's super exciting. That brings money into my business. It's wonderful. I love the work that I do, but it means that I have fewer time gaps to be creating the long-term stuff. And many of you will be familiar with the idea that it's inordinately easier to turn up at a meeting that you've got booked than it is to do the thing you intended to do when you're only accountable to yourself. That's a barrier I anticipate for myself, is when my week is as full as it is with coaching and teaching, is that I'm going to have to be really focused in order to be producing the things that I want to produce. So I think I'm going to choose focused as the feeling that I want to experience. And then we get to think, well, where does a feeling of focus come from? And it comes from our thoughts. And I can see that I might be starting to have thoughts like, I don't have time to do this, and so on. And so I need to figure out what thoughts are going to help me to achieve this goal. What thoughts are going to make me feel focused, which will mean that I take the steps and then achieve the goal of having this course ready for you all by the end of March. And the thoughts that I'm coming up with at the moment are things like, I know what the next step is, because that's really key for me, is not having too much of a big picture in my head, knowing exactly what's next. So a thought like, I know what the next step is. And then a bigger picture thought, I feel like I'm sort of thinking this through as I talk to you. I think a bigger picture thought of, this is going to be so useful to people in the long run. Bigger picture thought like that. Because often it's easy to put off these things because I know I'm useful in my one-to-one sessions. I know I'm useful when I run my workshops. And sometimes when I'm getting on with tasks just for myself, I'm a bit more like, it might be useful. Whereas with it, I know this is going to be so useful to so many of you. And so I think those two thoughts, I know what I need to do next, and this is going to be so useful for people. It's going to be super important. What we've done is we've kind of backfilled our model. We've gone, what's the result we want to achieve? What actions do we need to take in order to do that? What feelings do we need to have in order to do those actions? And what thoughts do we need to have in order to have those feelings? Okay. Often we don't do any of that stuff. Now what we're going to do, we're going to put that model to one side. And I want you to think about the next 3 months. And I want you to think, how do I want to feel over this next 3 months? Now, this is putting feelings in the results line. This is putting feelings as a goal. And I don't want you to be thinking specifically about any one of your goals at the moment. I want you to think more generically about how you want to feel this year. Because often we have contradictory ideas in our heads. We set ourselves a goal of running a half marathon or of making this course, but we also feel like, I want to feel relaxed this year. I want to feel calm this year, these sorts of thoughts. And what we often don't notice is how these things can be in conflict with each other unless we straighten it out in our heads. If we want to do something that's energetic and is going to require some kind of commitment and purpose and things, and we want to feel relaxed and calm, those things we can use to argue in our heads when we don't want to do the thing. So imagine you've picked a running goal. Let's go with that. Imagine you've picked a running goal and you want to do this half marathon, but you also want to feel relaxed this year. And it's really easy, if we haven't thought this through, to be like, I know I said I want to run this half marathon, and I do, but tonight I feel like I really need to relax rather than do my run. So, and I do want to be relaxed this year. That is a goal of mine. So yeah, I think I'll do that one. And we haven't worked out how we're going to balance these out when they're in conflict with each other. Here we have two choices. We either get to pick that actually the feeling we want to generate this year is something that is compatible with the goal we're trying to achieve. So I like excited. Excited's an emotion I really enjoy, that kind of enthusiastic, bubbly excitement, that kind of, not excitement. I'm not an adrenaline junkie. You're not going to find me on lots of roller coasters and all that stuff. But that kind of enthusiastic, oh, this is so exciting kind of feeling. I really like that feeling. And whilst, yes, I probably, feeling relaxed and stuff is good, general life goals, but actually feeling of excitement and like, oh, this is happening, this is going, there's things going on here, this is cool, is a really pleasant feeling for me and is compatible with my goal. So that, for me, feels like a really good combination. Now, you might feel, I want to do the race, or I want to write that grant, or whatever it is. I want to finish my PhD, but I also want to feel relaxed. And we don't have to make these fully compatible with each other, in the sense that relaxed is probably not going to be the emotion you need to drive the writing of your thesis, for example. But we have whole lives. We can decide, I want to feel this emotion when it's work time and I've got stuff to do on my thesis, or I want to feel this emotion when it's time to do my runs to get me ready for the half marathon. And I want to feel this emotion at other times. And so we get to sort of separate it out so that when we're telling ourselves, oh, but really, I want to feel relaxed. I don't kind of want to do my work today because relax is really important to me. We can remind ourselves, no. Relaxed is our goal for 5 p.m. till bedtime. That's when relaxed is our goal. This time, our goal is getting the work done, getting the race done. And for that, I need a different emotion. We get to kind of remind ourselves where there's conflict in this and just make a priori decisions about what that looks like. If we've got two goals and they're in competition with each other, which one wins? Which one is for certain times of your life and which others? You can also look at how things that feel contradictory might not be. So if you want to feel relaxed, but you also want to get your PhD finished this year, how can you make that not contradictory? How can you be purposeful in a relaxed way? How can you channel relaxed as the not overthinking, the not beating yourself up, the not kind of having to really justify exactly what the right next step is? The relaxed can be, okay, I'm going to relaxedly get on with this piece of work. What do I need to do next? That. Okay, let's go. I'm relaxed. We can do that. So a kind of relaxed productivity rather than a relaxed just sitting. Okay. So we get to plan this out in advance. Really think about how you want to feel and how this whole picture fits together. This is also a moment where you get to see if you are still committed to trying to do more goals than I told you to, which I know some of you will be. I still have to battle with myself on this. Then this is where you get to see how other goals are in competition with each other here. So if, for example, you've got 4 different goals, all of which require you to be focused, then get the question, can I do focus with 4 different goals? Probably not. Probably not. So how do I then divide that out? Do I deprioritize some of them? Now, don't get me wrong. You don't have to only prioritize one bit of your life. There's certain things that you're kind of just vaguely trying to do, but I'd really encourage you to have your specific goals, your priority goals as quite narrow. Okay. People who know me are going to be laughing at this episode. I am aware. I am learning as I do this, guys. Okay. I still had too many goals last year. I am really, really going to be kind of focused and try and practice what I preach this year. I understand that for those of us who are excited about lots of things and who feel like there's lots of different areas of their life that they want to tweak, it's so tempting to have too many. But when we start modeling it out like this, we really see the challenge behind that. So really, really 1 or 2 things. You may have noticed that when we went back through that model, we started at results. What actions do we need to take? How do we need to feel to take those actions? What do we need to think to make those feelings? We didn't do anything with our circumstances. And that's in line with the model. The model suggests that the circumstances just are what they are, and that we choose what thoughts we have about them. So from that perspective, the circumstances are largely irrelevant. We get to decide what thoughts we're going to focus on. However, all the stuff I do is also informed by exercise psychology, behavior change science, and all this other research that suggests that whilst our circumstances aren't responsible for our thoughts, feelings, and actions, they can influence them. So the next thing I want you to do is I want you to think about your circumstances, think about your environment, and whether those circumstances make it easy to have the thoughts you want to have. When you think specifically about your goal, how can you make the circumstances way more conducive to thinking the thoughts and feeling the feelings that you need to feel? So for me, one of the circumstances that I want to make sure exists by about the 7th of January, something like that, because I'm not going to do it now before the Christmas break. One of the things I want to make sure exists by the end of that first week is a clear plan of what I'm making. Because it's so much easier for me to think the thought, I know exactly what to do next, if I've got a nicely specified out plan that I actually trust. Now, I could choose to think that regardless. I don't have to have a clear plan in order to think I know exactly what to do next. I could make this up as I go along on a wing and a prayer and still tell myself I know exactly what the next step is. But it's inordinately easier if I have the circumstance of there's a plan on my whiteboard over there. Okay, so that's one of the circumstance things that I'm going to make so that I can make it as easy as possible to think the thought, I know what I need to do next. The other thing that I'm going to do, and I've already committed to creating this, is I'm keeping 1 day a week free of individual clients. So when I say I'm full with individual clients, I don't mean I have individual clients all day, every day, because I have other work I have to do on the business, creating this podcast for you guys, doing my emails, doing my social media, all the liaison stuff that's behind the scenes, all my workshops, and now producing this course. So I have 1 day a week where I don't have any one-to-one clients. I do sometimes have workshops on it. I always do my strategic planning on that day. And by creating that circumstance where I have a day that is almost clear most weeks, then I know I've got a space in which to do the work that I need to do. I also have other periods of the week which are set aside for workshops, but there aren't workshops in them every week. And so one of my other circumstances that I'm going to create is a diary where when I'm not doing a workshop in that space, it says course production. So I'm going to create a diary in which course production is put in as a diary slot. Okay, so that's a circumstance. It doesn't change my thoughts. It doesn't force me to think particular things. It doesn't induce feelings in me. But I know that if I have a diary where I've specified when I'm going to work on these things, it's not guaranteed I'll do it, but it's much more likely that I'll think the thought, it's time to do my course, and that will make me feel focused. So I want you to think with your circumstances, how can you make them more conducive to the thoughts you want to think? If your goal is around running, how can you make sure that your circumstances, you have a good raincoat, that you have a wet weather plan that you do if it's not nice weather out there? How do you make sure you have a training program? How do you make sure you have a training partner so you have some accountability, whatever it might be? How can you make that circumstance more conducive? Because then we've got this conducive circumstance, we've got thoughts that are easy to think in that environment, that create feelings that mean we're more likely to do the actions and we're more likely to achieve our goals. So we've created a whole model that is supportive of creating that goal. The other thing you can do with your circumstance is make sure it's really easy to remember what your thought, feeling, action grouping is. Often people do this work and then they don't look at it again. So I want you to also think, how can you not only identify thoughts now that are going to help you, but how can you remember what those thoughts are? Do you want to have them on your phone screen? Do you want to have them on the wall? Do you want to have them on your computer somewhere? How are you going to remember these thoughts? If you're someone who journals or keeps a diary, do you want to write them down at the beginning of the day? How are you going to keep these thoughts in the utmost part of your head? Because that's the other problem with goals, is we often set them and don't really go back to them. Now, if you guys have listened to my Christmas episode where I talked about 7 things we can learn from Santa, you'll know that one of those is about tracking your progress. That I talk about how you can follow Santa on Christmas Eve as he goes around the world on Flight Tracker and other apps, and how important it is to track our own progress in our own work and other projects as well. So think about not only how can you track your action progress, but how can you track the thoughts that you're having? How can you keep track of how you're feeling and how you're thinking about your goal so that you can try and make sure that the thoughts that help you stay uppermost and it doesn't turn into lots of, oh, I can't be bothered today thoughts, or I've already messed this up thoughts. What I do inside my membership with my students who are in the long-term membership the university can sign up for, every month we have a review meeting where we do this for the month. So we use a self-coaching model to look backwards over the last month to see what we achieved, what thoughts we were having a lot, our feelings, and how that all fitted together, and then to look forward for the next month. So once a month we revisit this. That's something that I'm going to build into this self-paced course for all of you guys, is worksheets and sort of structures so that you can build that sort of review process into your lives as well. So really think about, when am I going to revisit this? How am I going to keep track of what I'm thinking about it? How am I going to make it more likely that I think these thoughts more often? The final point I want to make, and this relates back to an episode from a few weeks ago where I talked about why you should act without thinking. So again, if you haven't listened to that one, go back and listen to it. Is there are times when you don't want to have to negotiate through all of this stuff. I've had clients in the past talk about how sometimes they get caught up in self-coaching. They get a bit obsessed with, oh, what am I thinking? Why am I thinking that? What else could I be thinking? Instead of actually doing the things, they get caught up in this sort of little web of self-understanding. It's totally normal, totally understandable, but it's useful to spot, because the other thought that you can have in advance is, I don't have to feel like doing this to do it. And that is a thought. I am still nurturing it on several things, but that is a thought that will help you achieve so many goals. I don't have to feel like doing this to do it. Because most of the time, if we don't feel like doing the thing, we either don't do the thing, or we spend a load of time trying to make ourselves feel like doing the thing. And in the long run, making yourself feel like you want to do the thing, great strategy, love it. But there in the moment, if we renegotiate every single time, but I don't really feel like, maybe I'll do some self-coaching today. Just pick the thought. I don't have to feel like doing it to do it. And off we go. This was the plan. Boss Vicky decided this was the plan. My job is to do what we're told. Maybe we reevaluate at the end of the week. Maybe we reevaluate at the end of the month, whatever it might be. But I don't have to feel like doing the thing in order to do the thing. I am on this journey with you. Okay. I'm going to have a personal goal, which I'm going to keep to myself, and I have that work goal. None of this is stuff that comes easy to me. I'm not going to say, and last year I did this and da. Although, should we do this? Let's do this. Hold on. I haven't looked at this for a while. Maybe I should have done. But for those of you not watching, I just pulled out a rather sexy looking planner that I've used somewhat intermittently to see what things that I said I was going to do last year. Last year, I set it as things that were going to exist by the end of the year. And in typical Vicky style, I'm just looking at this, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14 things. So here's an example of what not to do. Of these, the wellness ones I'd say were 40% there. Solid handstand. You know what? Considering how not that much exercise I've done this year, my handstand is not bad. I've been actively practicing for the last 6 weeks or so. Solid handstand, I reckon, is going to be ticked off by the end of the year. Solid chin up. Solid might be a big word for it, but it's there or thereabouts, which, considering I'm heavier than usual, is saying something. Tidy, streamlined house. Tidy would be a big word. Streamlined, pretty much. So I'm going to give myself 50% on that one. I finished my novel. Yay. Fun memories in my sentimental box. Had lots of fun memories. Nothing's in my sentimental books yet, so that's not done. New garden, done. New guide pack started, done. Some work with Results UK, the charity, yes, done, did that. Got married, enjoyed the process, 100%. Tick, 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 all over that one. I'm not going to read out the financial goals there, but I have hit all of them. The exciting thing there, the beginning of the year, I wanted 6,000 podcast downloads by the end of this year. And I am on track to, depending on how these ones go, get close to 20,000. So we've smashed that one. So thank you, everybody. When I look back at these, I've achieved some, but not all of them. And I'm going to celebrate that partial success like we always do. But when I look at the ones that I didn't achieve, it's because when it came to doing those things, I renegotiated with myself. I renegotiated whether I felt like doing the thing or not. I didn't specify out for all of these exactly what I need to do to achieve it. I didn't specify out exactly what I needed to think and feel. This is something that I've been introducing in my life since about September time, and it's been really, really working for me. So my meta thought, that kind of metacognitive where you actually see your brain and things, is going to be, I don't have to feel like doing this to do it. What will yours be, do you think? Have a ponder. Let me know. Jump on social media. You can find me on Instagram at the PhD Life Coach, on Twitter at Dr. Vicky Burns, and let me know what your goals are and what thoughts you are going to try and nurture with them. I'm going to try and remember in the podcast to prod you about them in a few months' time, and we can share where we're at and reset for the next term. Thank you so much for listening today. I really hope that's been useful. Do make sure you're checking back in with all the past episodes from last year, which I think will be super useful for you. If you haven't done your strength-based review of the year, go back to that episode with Professor Jen Cumming. I highly recommend it. At the point of recording, I haven't done mine yet for this year, but I'm really excited. I'm doing it on Monday. And next week, I have another guest. I'm not going to tell you who. So you'll wait and see, but it's a super good one. It's already in the can. And I look forward to seeing you all then.